Chosen one, something is happening around you. And deep down you feel it. You may not have the words for it yet, but your spirit knows. There are moments lately when life feels heavier than it should. When certain people suddenly drift away. When situations shift without warning. And in those quiet moments a question starts rising inside you. Why does my life feel different from everyone else's? Chosen one, listen carefully. What you're experiencing is not random. It's not bad luck. It's not confusion. It's awakening. Because the truth is this: you have no idea who you really are. The strength inside your spirit is far greater than you've ever been told. And the reason your path has been harder, the reason you've faced battles that others never had to face, is because your spirit carries something powerful. The enemy never attacks what is ordinary. Scripture reminds us in 1 Peter 5:8 to stay alert, because the adversary looks for those whose purpose threatens darkness. And if your life has felt like a constant spiritual battlefield, it may be because your existence alone disturbs forces you cannot see. Think about it. Why were you always the one who felt things deeper? Why were you the one who questioned what others blindly followed? Why were you the one who never fully fit in with the crowd? It's because your spirit was never meant to blend in. It was meant to awaken. Many chosen ones spend years thinking something is wrong with them. You may have thought you were too sensitive, too different, too intense. But heaven sees it differently. Your spirit is stronger than your mind has realized. And right now, something important is happening. Your awareness is expanding. The things you used to ignore, you now notice. The people who once seemed trustworthy suddenly reveal their true intentions. Situations you once tolerated now feel impossible to stay in. That is not coincidence. That is spiritual clarity. Even Jesus Christ warned in John 15:19 that those chosen out of the world would be misunderstood by it. When you begin to awaken to who you truly are, the world reacts. Some people will pull away. Some will criticize. Some will try to silence you. But their reaction is not the problem. Their reaction is the confirmation. Because something inside you is rising. Right now, as you're hearing this, your spirit is being reminded of a truth it has always known. You were never ordinary. You were never meant to live a small life. There is a reason your path has shaped you differently. And if this message is speaking directly to your spirit, take a moment right now and like this video and subscribe to the channel, because this space is where chosen ones are reminded of the truth about their purpose. And if you feel moved to support this message, reaching other chosen ones around the world, you can also use the Super Thanks feature below. Your support helps spread these messages to people who are waking up just like you. But here is the part most people don't realize. Being chosen does not start with power. It starts with pressure. Before God reveals the strength inside someone, He often allows them to walk through seasons that feel overwhelming. Seasons that force the spirit to grow stronger than the circumstances around it. Look at the lives of those who carried purpose in Scripture. Moses spent years feeling unqualified before leading nations. David fought lions and giants before wearing a crown. Even Joseph was betrayed and imprisoned before stepping into destiny. Chosen one, your struggles were never meaningless. They were training. And what you're beginning to sense right now, this shift in your awareness, this growing realization that something about your life is different, that is the first sign that your spirit is beginning to remember its strength. But what most chosen ones still don't understand is this: there are hidden signs that reveal just how powerful your spirit really is. Signs that have been present in your life for years without you realizing it. And once you see them, you will never look at your life the same way again. Chosen one of the greatest mysteries about your life is this: your strength has been hidden from you for a long time. Not because it isn't real, not because it doesn't exist, but because spiritual strength often grows in silence and hardship before it is revealed in clarity and power. Many chosen ones spend years believing they are weak, when in reality they have survived battles that would have broken most people. If you stop and reflect on your life honestly, you may realize something shocking. You've endured things that should have crushed your spirit. Moments where you felt abandoned. Situations where people you trusted turned against you. Seasons where you prayed, waited, and wondered why nothing seemed to change. Yet somehow, you're still here. That alone says something powerful about the spirit inside you. The truth is, God was building something within you that could not be destroyed by circumstances. In the Scriptures, we see this pattern again and again. The people who carried the greatest calling often walked through the deepest valleys before their strength was revealed. Consider Joseph. Before he ever stood in authority in Egypt, his own brothers betrayed him. He was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and placed in prison. To anyone watching from the outside, it would have looked like his life was falling apart. But heaven saw something different. Every hardship was strengthening his spirit. Every betrayal was preparing him for the moment when he would need wisdom, endurance, and humility to fulfill his purpose. Chosen one, the same pattern often appears in your life. Your spirit has been trained through experiences that forced you to grow stronger internally. Maybe you were the one who had to mature early. Maybe you were the one who always had to figure things out on your own. Maybe you were the one who carried emotional battles that no one else seemed to notice. And while others were focused on comfort, popularity, or approval, you were learning something far more valuable: spiritual resilience. The Bible reminds us in Isaiah 40:31 that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will rise up with wings like eagles, run and not grow weary, walk and not faint. That verse is not describing ordinary strength. It's describing spiritual endurance. Chosen ones often discover this strength during their darkest moments. When everything around them feels uncertain, something inside them refuses to collapse completely. Even when you felt like giving up, a quiet voice inside kept telling you to keep going. That voice wasn't just motivation. That was your spirit responding to divine purpose. Another powerful example is David. Before he ever became king, he spent years alone as a shepherd. While others saw an ordinary young man watching sheep, something deeper was happening in those quiet fields. He was learning courage. When a lion came, he fought it. When a bear appeared, he faced it. No crowd applauded him. No audience witnessed those battles. Yet those hidden victories prepared him for the moment he would stand before a giant named Goliath. Chosen one, many of the battles in your life were also private battles. Moments where no one understood what you were dealing with. Moments where you felt completely alone in your struggles. Moments where the only thing keeping you going was faith. But those moments were not wasted. They were building a spirit that could stand strong, even when everything around it feels uncertain. And here is something important to understand. The strength of a chosen one does not come from ego, pride, or force. It comes from a deep connection to something greater than the physical world. When that connection begins to grow stronger, your awareness changes. You begin to sense things others overlook. You start recognizing patterns in people's behavior. You notice spiritual battles taking place beneath everyday situations. It's not imagination. It's discernment awakening. But this is where many chosen ones become confused. Because once your spirit starts waking up to its strength, something else begins to happen around you. Certain people will start acting differently toward you. Some will distance themselves. Others will feel strangely uncomfortable in your presence. At first it may not make sense, but there is a reason for it. And what you're about to understand next may completely change how you see the people around you. Because when a chosen one begins to realize their spiritual strength, the world around them starts reacting in ways they never expected. Chosen one, once your spirit begins to awaken to its strength, something unusual often starts happening in your life. The people around you begin to change, not necessarily because you said anything different, and not because you suddenly tried to stand out, but because your presence itself starts revealing things. At first it can feel confusing. People who once seemed comfortable around you suddenly become distant. Conversations that once flowed easily begin to feel tense. Some individuals may even act defensive or strangely critical without any clear reason. You might ask yourself, what did I do wrong? But the truth is, this shift is rarely about something you did. It is about what your spirit carries. When a chosen one begins stepping closer to their spiritual awareness, their presence starts bringing light into places where darkness was once comfortable. And light has a natural effect. It reveals what was previously hidden. This is why the words of Jesus Christ in John 3:20 carry such deep meaning. He explained that people who are committed to darkness often avoid the light, because the light exposes what they would rather keep hidden. Chosen one, when your spirit becomes stronger, it naturally carries that light. You may not be preaching to anyone. You may not be confronting people directly. You may simply be living your life quietly. But something about your presence begins to make others aware of themselves. Some people respond to that awareness with humility. They feel inspired by your strength. They recognize something different in you and feel drawn toward it. These are the individuals who may become genuine allies on your journey. But others react in the opposite way. Instead of reflecting on themselves, they become uncomfortable. They may try to dismiss your growth, criticize your choices, or question your path. Sometimes they will attempt to pull you back into old patterns that no longer align with who you are becoming. This reaction is not new. It has appeared throughout history whenever someone chosen by God began walking closer to their calling. Look at the life of Joseph again. When he shared the dreams placed in his heart, his own brothers reacted with jealousy and anger. They could not understand the purpose within him, so they tried to remove him from the picture entirely. Or consider David. When he stepped forward to face the giant Goliath, even the soldiers of Israel questioned him. They saw a young shepherd and assumed he was unqualified. They could not yet see the courage God had already developed inside him. Chosen one, when people cannot understand your spirit, they often judge it based on what they see externally. Chosen one, when people cannot understand your spirit, they often judge it based on what they see externally. But the truth is this: spiritual strength does not always look impressive on the surface. Sometimes it looks like quiet resilience. Sometimes it looks like walking away from toxic environments. Sometimes it looks like choosing peace when others expect you to react with anger. Your strength may not always make sense to those who are still focused only on the physical world. And here is something many chosen ones eventually realize. The more you grow spiritually, the smaller certain environments begin to feel. Conversations that once entertained you may begin to feel empty. Certain habits that once seemed normal may suddenly feel uncomfortable. Even friendships that once felt natural may start losing their connection. This does not mean you are better than anyone. It simply means your spirit is evolving. The Bible reminds us in Romans 12:2, not to be conformed to the patterns of this world, but to be transformed through the renewing of the mind. That transformation is exactly what many chosen ones begin experiencing during this stage of their journey. And as this transformation continues, something else begins to happen. Your awareness deepens. You start recognizing spiritual battles before they fully appear. You begin sensing intentions behind people's words. Situations that once confused you suddenly become clearer. It is as if your spirit is learning to see beyond the surface of things. But here is the truth that many chosen ones are not prepared for. This deeper awareness is not just a gift, it is also a responsibility, because once you begin seeing clearly, you can no longer pretend that certain things in your life are healthy or aligned with your purpose. And the next stage of your journey may require one of the hardest things a chosen one must ever do: letting go of what no longer belongs in your life. And when that moment arrives, it can feel both painful and necessary at the same time. Chosen one of the most difficult parts of awakening to your true spiritual strength is the season of separation. This is the stage where life begins quietly removing things, places, and even people that once felt permanent, and at first it can feel painful. Relationships shift, friendships fade. Certain environments that once felt familiar suddenly feel uncomfortable. You may even wonder why life seems to be pulling you away from the very things that once made you feel secure. But there is a powerful spiritual reason behind it. God often separates a chosen one from certain influences before revealing the next level of their purpose. Because not everyone who started the journey with you is meant to walk the entire path with you. This is something many chosen ones struggle to accept. We naturally want to keep the same connections, the same circles, the same sense of belonging we once had. But when your spirit begins to grow stronger, some environments simply cannot hold the version of you that is emerging. The scriptures show this pattern repeatedly. When God began preparing Abraham for his destiny, he first called him to leave his homeland and everything familiar. It wasn't just a physical journey. It was a spiritual separation from the past that could have limited the future God had planned. In Genesis 12:1, Abraham was told to go to a land that God would reveal later. Imagine the faith that required, walking away from everything known without seeing the full picture yet. Chosen one, sometimes your life enters a similar moment. You may not understand why certain doors close. You may not know why certain relationships suddenly fall apart, but what feels like loss is often divine redirection. Because the truth is, Some people were only meant to walk with you during earlier chapters of your life. They were part of your learning, part of your growth, part of your preparation. But they were never meant to be part of your final assignment. Consider the life of Joseph once again. His journey toward purpose began with separation from his own family. Being thrown into that pit was not just betrayal, it was the beginning of a path that would eventually place him in a position to save entire nations. The pit was painful, but the pit was also the doorway to destiny. Chosen one, when separation begins happening in your life, it does not mean you are being abandoned. It means your path is being refined. Some relationships cannot survive the growth of your spirit because they were built around the older version of you. The version that was still uncertain, still seeking approval, still trying to fit into spaces that were never meant to contain your calling. As your awareness grows, you start noticing things that once went ignored. Certain conversations feel draining. Certain behaviors around you begin to feel toxic. Certain expectations people place on you begin to feel heavy and limiting. This is not arrogance, it is spiritual alignment. The Bible reminds us in 2 Corinthians 6:17 about the importance of coming out from environments that compromise your spiritual direction. That doesn't mean rejecting people with hatred or pride. It simply means recognizing that your spirit must remain connected to what strengthens it. And here is something many chosen ones eventually realize. The moment God begins separating you from the wrong influences is often the same moment he begins preparing the right connections for your future. But those connections cannot appear while your life is still crowded with what no longer belongs. Think about how a gardener works. Before planting something new, the soil must be cleared. Old weeds must be removed so that healthy growth can take place. Your life sometimes goes through the same process. What feels like emptiness right now may actually be space being created for something greater. And while this season of separation can feel lonely, it carries a powerful purpose. Because during these quiet moments, God often begins revealing something deeper about who you truly are. Something most chosen ones never fully understand until later in their journey. You were not only chosen to endure, you were chosen because your spirit carries a unique authority that affects the spiritual atmosphere around you. And once that authority fully awakens, the way your presence influences the world will begin to change in ways you never expected. Chosen one, there is something many people sense about you even before you fully understand it yourself. It's not something you announce. It's not something you try to show. Yet somehow it's there. It's spiritual authority. This authority doesn't come from status, money, or influence in the physical world. It comes from the strength of a spirit that has been shaped through trials, faith, and divine purpose. And the reason your life has felt different for so long is because your spirit carries an assignment that affects more than just your personal journey. It affects the atmosphere around you. You may have noticed moments where your presence changes the energy of a room. Sometimes people become calmer around you. Other times, people who carry hidden negativity suddenly feel uncomfortable near you. Without saying much at all, you seem to stir reactions in people that you never intended. Chosen one, this is often a sign that your spirit carries authority. The Bible describes this kind of presence in the life of Daniel. Even when he was taken into a foreign land and surrounded by powerful officials, something about his spirit stood out immediately. Those around him recognized wisdom, discipline, and divine favor operating within him. It wasn't because Daniel tried to prove himself. It was because God's presence rested on his spirit. In Daniel 6:3, it says that Daniel distinguished himself among the leaders because an excellent spirit was found in him. Chosen one, when a person carries that kind of spirit, it naturally produces authority. Not the loud authority that demands attention, but the quiet authority that commands respect without forcing it. You may have experienced this in your life without realizing what it meant. There are times when people come to you for advice, even when they barely know you. Something about your words carries weight. Your perspective seems to bring clarity to situations that others feel confused about. At other times, people who thrive on manipulation or negativity may avoid you entirely. They sense something in your presence that makes it difficult for them to operate the way they usually do. This isn't coincidence. It's the effect of a spirit that is connected to truth. Even Jesus Christ demonstrated this kind of authority. When he spoke, people felt the difference immediately. In Matthew 7:29, it says the crowds were amazed because he taught with authority, not like the teachers they were used to hearing. That authority did not come from human recognition. It came from divine alignment. Chosen one, as your spirit continues awakening, you may start noticing that your influence grows in unexpected ways, not necessarily through popularity or attention, but through the impact your words and actions have on others. You may encourage someone without realizing how deeply your words affected them. You may stand for truth in a quiet moment and inspire someone watching from the background. Sometimes the greatest authority works silently. But here is something important to understand. Spiritual authority is not given to chosen ones so they can feel superior to others. It is given so they can bring light, wisdom, and direction where confusion once existed. That responsibility is why the path of a chosen one often includes so much preparation. Every hardship you faced was shaping your character. Every moment of loneliness was strengthening your connection to God. Every challenge was teaching you humility, patience, and faith. Because authority without humility becomes pride. And pride cannot carry the kind of purpose God assigns to chosen ones. The journey you've walked has been preparing you to handle the weight of what is coming. But there is still one truth many chosen ones have not fully realized yet. The enemy does not fear your past mistakes. The enemy fears the moment you fully recognize who you are becoming. Because the moment a chosen one understands their spiritual authority, they stop living in fear, doubt, and hesitation. And that is when their true impact begins. Chosen one, there is a reason your life has included so many moments of confusion, discouragement, and distraction. It wasn't random. It wasn't simply bad timing or unfortunate circumstances. It was resistance. Because the moment a chosen one begins to understand who they truly are, something powerful happens. Fear begins to lose its grip. Doubt begins to fade. And the spiritual authority inside them starts becoming active. That moment is exactly what the enemy tries to prevent. From the very beginning, one of the greatest strategies used against chosen ones is distraction. If the enemy can keep you busy with worry, trapped in cycles of self-doubt, or focused on temporary struggles, then you may never fully realize the strength that exists within your spirit. Think about the different seasons of your life. There may have been times when you felt like you were constantly battling your own thoughts, moments where insecurity tried to convince you that you weren't good enough, strong enough, or capable enough to step into something greater. Those thoughts were not random. They were designed to keep you looking at your limitations instead of your calling. The scriptures show this strategy clearly. When Moses was first called to lead the people of Israel, his immediate response was doubt. He questioned his ability to speak. He questioned whether people would listen to him. He focused on what he believed were weaknesses. But God saw something Moses could not yet see in himself. In Exodus 4:12, God reassured him that he would guide his words and be with him. The strength Moses needed was never supposed to come from his own confidence alone. It was meant to come from trust in God's purpose. Chosen one, the same truth applies to you. Many chosen ones spend years believing they are inadequate because they focus on the areas where they feel imperfect. But God rarely chooses people who already feel completely confident. Instead, he often chooses those whose hearts are humble and whose spirits are willing to grow. Look at David before he faced Goliath. The soldiers around him saw a giant they believed could not be defeated. Their focus was on the size of the threat. David's focus was different. He remembered the battles God had already helped him win in the past. He remembered the lion and the bear he had faced while protecting his sheep. Those victories had quietly prepared his spirit for the moment everyone else thought was impossible. Chosen one, your past victories may not always seem impressive to others. The battles you fought internally, the situations you've survived, the faith you've held on to during difficult seasons. Those moments may have felt small at the time, but they were shaping your perspective. They were teaching your spirit to recognize something many people overlook: God's presence in the middle of struggle. Distraction is powerful because it keeps people from reflecting on what they've already overcome. When you constantly focus on what is wrong right now, you forget how many obstacles you have already survived. And once you forget that, doubt becomes stronger. But the moment you pause and truly reflect on your journey, something begins to shift. You start seeing patterns. You start noticing how certain situations that once looked like disasters eventually led you to better places. Doors that closed pushed you toward doors that opened. People who left your life created space for healthier connections. Moments of failure forced you to develop wisdom and resilience. Suddenly, your life story begins to look different. Instead of seeing a long list of struggles, you begin seeing evidence of preparation. Chosen one, the enemy hoped those struggles would break you, but instead, they strengthened your spirit in ways you didn't recognize at the time. And now you are approaching a moment that changes everything. Because once a chosen one stops believing the lies of fear and distraction, they begin walking with a new awareness. An awareness that reveals something powerful about their identity. The realization that their spirit has been stronger all along. And when that realization becomes clear, the chosen one finally begins stepping into the purpose that was waiting for them all along. Chosen one, there comes a moment in your journey that quietly changes everything. It is not always loud. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it happens in a quiet realization during prayer, reflection, or even in the middle of an ordinary day. But when it happens, your perspective shifts forever. It is the moment when you finally begin to understand that your life was never random. The battles, the isolation, the strange path that never looked like anyone else's. It all starts making sense. You begin to realize something powerful. Your spirit has been stronger than you ever imagined. For so long, you may have looked at your life through the lens of struggle. You saw the pain, the setbacks, the disappointments. You wondered why your journey seemed harder than the paths of people around you. But when clarity arrives, you start seeing those same experiences differently. You begin recognizing them as training. Think about the people in Scripture whose lives carried deep purpose. None of them stepped directly into their calling without preparation. Their strength was developed through seasons that forced their faith to grow. Take Joseph once again. When he was sitting in that prison cell, it probably felt like his dreams had completely failed. From a human perspective, everything looked like a dead end, but God was positioning him for something far greater. In one unexpected moment, Joseph was brought from prison into the presence of the ruler of Egypt. And because of the wisdom that had been shaped inside him during years of hardship, he was able to interpret the dream that changed the future of an entire nation. That moment was not luck. It was the collision between preparation and destiny. Chosen one, many moments in your life are leading toward a similar realization. Every challenge has been strengthening your spirit for something that requires resilience, wisdom, and faith. The Bible reminds us in Romans 8:28 that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Notice that word, called. Chosen ones often spend years wondering whether they truly have a purpose. But purpose is not something you suddenly receive one day. It is something that has been quietly forming within your life from the beginning. Every lesson, every trial, every moment where you had to trust God, even when the outcome was uncertain, all of it has been shaping your spirit. Even Jesus Christ walked through seasons of preparation before stepping fully into his public mission. In Luke 2:52, it says that he grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and people. Growth and preparation were part of the process. Chosen one, the strength inside you is not accidental. It has been carefully developed through every chapter of your life. And now you are reaching a stage where something important begins to happen. Instead of constantly questioning yourself, you begin trusting the direction God places on your heart. Instead of shrinking back in fear, you start walking forward with quiet confidence. Instead of trying to fit into environments that drain your spirit, you begin choosing spaces that align with your purpose. Your spirit begins operating from awareness rather than uncertainty. This does not mean life will suddenly become effortless. Challenges will still appear, but the difference is that you now understand something you didn't before. You are not facing those challenges alone. The same God who strengthened David before the battle with Goliath, the same God who guided Moses through the wilderness, and the same God who protected Daniel in the lion's den is the one who has been guiding your journey as well. And the moment you truly understand that truth, something powerful awakens inside you. You stop seeing yourself as someone simply trying to survive life. You begin seeing yourself as someone called to walk with purpose, strength, and faith. Chosen one, the world may not fully understand who you are becoming. Some people may never see the transformation taking place inside your spirit. But that doesn't matter, because once you know who you are in God's eyes, you no longer need the world's approval to keep moving forward. Your spirit already knows the truth. And that truth is this: you are far stronger than you ever realized. And the journey ahead is only just beginning.